Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I know I'm not going to do this introduction any justice at all. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. But I have a very, very, very special guest on today. We're just going to call her we'll refer to her as Aunt Mitzi. I want to welcome Mitzi.
Hi, really good to be here.
Welcome. And should I say Henderson?
Yeah, let's go by Henderson. I have a married name, but I'm not going to use it for this subject because not all my family agrees with me, and I don't want to act as if I'm speaking for everybody. I'm going to share what I will tell family members, but I'm not speaking for the brand.
Well, but we can talk about, a little bit about who you are and where you come from. And that is, your father was somebody that a lot of people probably have heard of.
Ernest Henderson was the co-founder and president in the 1930s through the 1960s of the Sheraton hotel chain. Yeah, and we sold the Sheraton chain when he died, but I sure grew up as a Sheraton heiress and loved it.
Wow, that's incredible. So have you ever stayed in a Sheraton?
When he was alive, I bet there are a few people who've stayed in more presidential suites.
Oh, that is awesome. That's awesome. So you did not go on to run the Sheraton empire. You took a different path in life, and you became I'm going to let you tell it. First, I want to ask everybody that's watching the live stream to please share this out, because the information that's about to be disseminated, you need to hear. You definitely need to hear. But Mitzi, also known as Aunt Mitzi, Mitzi, you're a science writer, and you've been syndicated. I forget how I read it, so pardon me for that, but you're the largest syndicated science writer in the nation, right?
There was a period for about 10 years when I was the most widely syndicated environmental writer in the country.
Wow.
And that came about because as an environmental writer, I was always interviewing scientists. And by virtue of that, I became a science writer. And then the way I became most widely syndicated, that much better than everybody else, but I got there first. I suggested to Scripps Howard early in the 1980s that they needed an environmental column, and they bought it. And you would think that perhaps the New York Times that their science writer would be a bigger environmental writer, and it didn't work out that way. They didn't have one dedicated scientific writer. Let me back up. The New York Times did not have one environmental writer who was just doing nothing but writing about the environment. Scripps Howard did, and it was me, and my column went to 420 newspapers.
420 newspapers. That's huge.
And then after that, I became a health writer, and I worked for the Academy of Women's Health, writing for them. And then I also worked for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology News. And the amazing thing is, it's as if all that experience of interviewing scientists and trying to find out, what's real and what's the news that's worthwhile and that people can put their faith in. I figure I've had almost 40 years of doing that. And boy, did that sure prepare me for what's going on today, which is coronavirus.
Yeah. And you happen to be much better. What's the word? Versed, educated on what that's all about, because I told you I did a live stream the other night saying, hey, everybody stop panicking. and you're not saying panic, right?
Oh, I'm totally cool with not panicking. Right. In fact, that's just not productive. But on the other hand, I think being prepared can save people a lot of anxiety and grief later. And this is, in my opinion, I think a lot of people, certainly people I interact with, don't realize, that this is a lot different from the common flu. And I can explain some of the reasons why I say that.
Okay.
One of the first ones is the common flu, your chances of ending up in the hospital are like 1 in 1,000. Your odds of being what they call a case fatality instance is around 1 in 1,000. On the other hand, your odds of dying of this. Now, I'm going to say something that experts disagree on, and I'll give you the range. Some people say your odds of dying of it are 1 in 100, and personally, I think that's likely to be right. But there are other experts who say that your odds of dying of it are 4 in 100, and the difference between 1 in 1,000 and 4 in 100 is huge. Okay, that's one of the reasons to take it more seriously, but there are others. The common flu, you're apt to spread it, just on average, maybe to somewhere between 1 and 2 people. With this, you're likely to spread it. Yeah, and the final figures aren't in yet. This is just best guesses. So I don't want to be held to this, a month from now.
Right.
But the best guesses of the experts that I can find think that your odds of being hospitalized are something like 20%.
Wow.
And you get hospitalized because the coronavirus goes from your upper respiratory system down deep into your lungs, and you get pneumonia, and you need supplementary oxygen. Your odds are somewhere around 20% if you get it, of having it progress to that stage. And the odds of needing to be in the ICU are like 5%.
Wow.
And that just doesn't happen with the common flu whatsoever. So this does, a number of things that just make it much, much worse than the common flu. And I've already said that your odds of dying are worse. Your odds of being hospitalized are worse. The average stay in the hospital up to now is 11 days. And typically you have a few days in the ICU, and your hospital bill, either to you or to society, can be around $750,000. And that does not happen with the common flu. So this is vastly more serious. But then add to that, there's another issue, which is it spreads. And it spreads. The reason it's spreading so fast is that because it's a novel virus, we don't have any what's called herd immunity to it. So that almost anybody that you come across, if you're carrying it, you can spread it to them. So you may be spreading it to 4 people instead of a little more than 1 that you would do with the common influenza. So frankly, I don't want anybody to panic, but I want them to take it really seriously. And I think there's some preparations that people ought to be taking right now.
So I I have a question. You and I talked about this a little bit. I had one of those news things flash up on my screen from Apple News yesterday, saying that I think it was the mayor of New York City has stated that that New York is in a state of emergency because of the rapidly spreading coronavirus in New York. I don't know, that's the largest city in America, I think, or up there. That's serious. Like that's serious.
Well, let me tell you what's happening in Italy right now. I mean, I looked it up minutes ago just to get the latest information. There's something like 60 million people in Italy who are quarantined right now, and the government's telling those people no funerals, weddings, no going out to the bars. They want people to stay home, and there's a very good reason for that. This thing's probably going to spread no matter what, but you'd really like it to spread as slowly as possible so you don't overwhelm the hospitals. So I think the goal of a lot of people who are in the healthcare system, their real goal, we know that you can't contain it anymore, but to the extent that you can slow the progression of it, it means that not everybody's hitting the hospitals at once. And you want a really scary statistic? And let's hope it doesn't.
No.
Sorry, I'm going to give it to you.
I like being in denial, Mitzi. You're killing me here.
No, going to let you off. Aunt Mitzi loves you and wants you to know everything.
Yes, tell me what is the scary statistic?
Okay, well, let's deeply hope that this doesn't come true, but they're reputable people. I'll give you one. He's a professor of, I think it's virology at Harvard University. He expects between 40 and 60% of the population of the world to get this.
What?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
It, as far as I can tell right now, and this is the best information that I can gather. And if you ask me a week from now, I might change my mind. But at this moment, it looks to me as if it doubles every 4 days, every 4.5 days, and that starts off with very, very small numbers that don't worry anybody. But I've heard guesses of, I don't dare tell you. Well, how about? Well, I'll put it in context. The Spanish flu in 1918, scientists believe it killed between 50 million and 100 million people.
Oh my God.
Okay, I've heard reputable epidemiologists and virologists say that this could be the same thing.
Oh my God.
So, all right, so that's the terrible news, but I'm not into doom and gloom.
I do want to also, if I may interrupt you. See, I never say sorry for interrupting because I'm not. I did that on purpose.
Go for it. We're friends.
So
you meet my new best friend.
Oh, you're so sweet. So I want, like, you're a Harvard graduate, right?
I am.
So yeah, this lady, Weldon Whitehurst, a friend of mine, is on here. He said, I wasn't worried until now. So
but wait, I'm not into panicking people. I'm not even into scaring people.
You're not.
I want people to act, because there's a lot you can do right now to protect yourself and your family.
That's right. And I want everybody to know that, Mitzi and I have had, we've been talking for the past hour-ish. And, this is, she's not on here to try to spread panic and freak people out. This is more about an education, like, so people understand what we're dealing with. And you have developed some amazing things that some just is the word precaution.
Preparation.
So let's talk about that. What are some things that people can do to prepare themselves?
Okay. And again, I gave you some scary statistics, and my deepest prayer is that they never come through. But there are some things that you can do to help yourself and the people that you love and the people around you, your community. And it's an awful lot better to prepare ahead of time and be somebody who helps others rather than the somebody that others have to help.
Yeah.
I just think you go through with, I don't know, more courage and hope if you're the one who's helping others.
Right.
Let me give you some ways to help others. Okay. And one of the first ones is, I bet you've watched on television or heard in the news or through podcasts that there's a huge shortage of face masks, right?
Yep.
I have a little lesson on face masks for you.
I'm going to put this full screen so you can show people that because I've already seen it, but let's see it.
And one of the first things that I really urge you to do is, if you've got a pencil and paper handy, write down my email, and I'll send you these directions along with photographs. And my email, I'll give it more than once, but it's Mitzi, Mitzi, at antmitzi.com. And I will give that again later. But I'm going to show you right now about the 2 face masks that people are talking about and a way that you can make your own. And let's start with a surgical mask. This is the thing that there's actually a fair amount of controversy about it. Does it do you any good? Does it do society any good? And this honestly is a little bit controversial, but I'll give you, it's not my own opinion. I'll give you opinions that I value. if you sneeze into this, it's really going to protect the people around you. Uh, it's probably not going to protect you that much because here's what happens. You put it on and it's a little bit difficult to breathe through. The mesh is fairly fine. And so when you breathe in, here's what's going to happen. The air in the room around you is going to go through the sides of it. And so it's not going to protect you that much. It will protect you some, and I'm very much in favor of wearing them if you can get your hands on them without competing with healthcare providers, because it does do something, but it's honestly more about helping prevent other people from getting infected by you.
Mm.
So if you can get these, great. I think they do provide a benefit to society, and when there's enough of them around so that you're not going to be, I don't know, hoarding them and keeping them out of the possession of the healthcare providers, use them. They're certainly better than nothing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, let me show you about what's called an N95 mask. You seen these?
Yep. They're all over the news.
Yeah, they fit around you, and they're very hard to get hold of. And actually, I know just in my own area that there are healthcare providers that just don't even have enough of these. I'll give you an example that I know of personally. It's in New York, and it's a large factory. And in this particular one, I happen to know that the nurses at this factory, the factory employs 1,000 people. The nurses, this snuck up on them. They have enough to last them a couple of days, but they don't have enough to last them a couple of months. They're up against running out. And so since there are people who badly, badly need them, I mean, imagine you're a nurse, you're one of 3 nurses, and you're going around taking care of people in this particular factory, and you don't have anything. I mean, that's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So really, there aren't enough of these at this moment, and we're talking Sunday, March 8th. I don't buy them, don't hoard them. But I've got news for you. And this is why I wanted you to have that address of Mitzi at AuntMitzi.com.
I have it scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I don't know if you see that or not.
Perfect. Yay. Yeah. Okay, so what can you do if you don't want to be a hoarder? You don't want to keep it out of the hands of people who really, 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 really need it. This is something that I got from Hong Kong University. It's something I'm going to show you how to make, and I'll give you directions if you write in for it. But you can make something that Hong Kong University says has 95% of the effectiveness of this, possibly even a squidge more if you do all of it. And,
wow.
And I'm going to give you directions. They're things that you probably have around the house. I hope you do. And that on top of having them around the house, they're cheap. I estimate that depending on where you buy what I'm about to describe, it'll cost you around 20 cents each. And you could probably make 100 of them. And the first, because the first one, it could take you half an hour. By the time you're making the 5th one, it'll take you 5 minutes.
Mm.
Are we ready?
Yes, we're ready.
I'm going to teach you how to make from a kitchen roll of kitchen paper.
Uh-huh.
Now, I hope you have that.
Yep.
And also tissue paper, Kleenex.
Okay.
If you don't have that, here's something that I really hope you have, toilet paper.
Yeah.
Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to take the kitchen paper, you're going to put Kleenex over it, and then you're going to have you're going to have 2 rolls of the kitchen paper, 2 layers of the kitchen paper. Then you're going to have 3 layers, and this would be the 3rd layer. It's tissue paper. And what you want to do is you want to cut it so that it's roughly, let me reach for what we're aiming for. It's going to end up roughly this shape. Because what you do is you're going to take those 3 layers and you're going to tape them all together.
Okay.
So now you have kind of like a sandwich in which you've got the tissue paper and the 2 layers of in my case, it's Bounty kitchen paper and tissues. You tape them all together.
We have somebody in Australia saying there's no toilet paper left in Australia.
Then you've got to ask me later on what to do when you've got no toilet paper. But,
yeah.
Okay, I'll have a quick answer. So there's something that other people are using. They're using sanitary napkins.
Okay.
They're cutting up diapers. They're using coffee filters. Yeah, these are not perfect examples, or not. They're certainly not perfect solutions, but I believe they're better than nothing. And in its desperate times, you do desperate things. And please remind me to tell about what to do about toilet paper for other uses. But let's get back to this. And these are, again, directions that come from Hong Kong University. Thank you, Hong Kong University.
Yeah.
You've got your layers that are taped together. Then cut a little wedge out of them.
Okay.
Fold it together like this and tape it until you've got something that will look like this. And I've used a different colored tape around it because that's what I had handy.
Yeah.
Take a hole punch, or if you don't have a hole punch, just poke a hole through. And you want to have stretchy twine so that you fit it around your face like this. And by the way, you may have to cut the edges off a little bit so that it's not too big for you. And if it's for a child, you may have to cut it a long way. Okay, so now you've got something that's pretty good. But guess what? It is not good enough, because there's a lot of space. If I'm to put it on, there's still a lot of space where the air can go between you and the mask. And preferentially, the air that's not filtered is going to go through this way, because you'll be surprised when you make this. It actually takes a fair amount of effort to inhale the air through the mask. So the air is preferentially going to come from the sides. So here's the next step. And it's the one, you could also use this with the surgical masks, but your goal at this point is to have something that's 95% as good as a surgical mask. Your next step is, you have some tape. And what I've got here right now is, this is medical tape, but on the guess that you don't have medical tape around the house, use whatever tape you've got. I mean, duct tape's probably going to hurt your skin, but if you've got Scotch tape or masking tape or anything that you can do, your next goal is to seal it. So I'm not going to demonstrate that. Just take my word for it.
Yeah.
You've got this. Let me get it right side up. Yeah, you've got this, and you tape it around so that as little as possible air gets through the sides.
Okay.
All right, your next goal, and this again comes from Hong Kong University. Ideally, you've got glasses. I just misspoke. I hope you have glasses, but even better, I hope you've got goggles like this. So your end goal is both to protect your mouth and nose, but also your eyes. So now imagine that you've got everything taped on and sealed. Hong Kong University says that at that point, you're almost all the way there to be the equivalent of this mask. And in my opinion, it's going to give you an advantage that people don't talk about a whole lot, but I happen to know about it being a science writer. And that is, you would be absolutely, by the way, I just did something that you shouldn't do. Don't touch your face.
Yeah.
But the average person touches his or her face 25 times an hour.
Yeah.
But let me go back to why the goggles are a really good idea. And if you don't have goggles, glasses are a good thing. And if you're going to be in an area where you know that it's actively dangerous, I think I'd use tape around my glasses.
So I have a question about this though. So are you saying people should be walking around their houses like with that?
No, once you're inside your house, unless there's somebody who's in your house who's ill. No, I'm talking about a case by the time that, if you're in quarantine, by the time that there's a lot of cases. In fact, one of the questions that we really need to get into is, at what point do you start using all these precautions? Because right now today, I'm not going to go outside wearing those things. But on the other hand, if I'm in a quarantine area, supposing I were in Italy right now, supposing I were in Milan, where we know that the stuff is just floating around everywhere and that you're getting, I think there's over 6,000 cases right now. And I think,
Jeez.
that number's doubling. So in 4 days, it could be 12,000. So it's at that point, that's the red line in which you start to want to use these extreme measures. But let me go into why the goggles are a good thing. This is surprising to a lot of people, but the coronavirus, your skin is a pretty good protection against it. I mean, it's a really good, don't touch your face, Mitzi.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
These, by the way, everybody, since you're all now my best friends as well, kindly notice that our host is blushing. Boy, do I have fun with this.
She does. Oh my gosh.
Aunt Mitzi tends to be wicked, but let's go on about the serious thing of why you would like to have your eyes covered.
Okay.
Viruses are most likely to enter through mucous membranes. In this case, the ones that we're worrying about are your mouth, your nose, and your eyes. Now, your mouth, it has all sorts of ways of defending yourself against disease. They're not good enough. I mean, you could certainly get infected through that way and through your nose. But the part of you that really needs all the help it can get is your eyes, because your eyes just naturally have much fewer defenses against microbes, particularly viruses, than your mouth or your nose. So you'd really, really like to have your eyes covered so that these little things that are floating in the air don't reach your eyes. And it's a help to wear glasses. It's a big help if you're wearing goggles. So if we're in a red alert situation, the kind where it's in the area, and maybe you're going, just as an example, maybe you're going shopping, maybe you're at the supermarket, and there's a fair chance that other people that you come across might be incubating it. Boy, I think if I were in Milan right now, I'd be wearing that full outfit, the mask and the goggles, and taped around so that I'm not breathing in air that hasn't been filtered. And it's not going to do 100% perfect job, but it's so much better than nothing.
And I want to jump in and say to anyone that's just joining or has joined in the last couple of minutes, we are talking with Mitzi Henderson. We're going with her maiden name. She is she's a Harvard graduate. She is a science writer. She is a world-renowned expert and heiress. I love that word, by the way, heiress to the Sheraton hotel chain. Your father is the co-founder or founder or co-founder?
And my uncle co-founded it, but that was in the 1930s. And I should quickly add that when he died in 1968, we sold the company.
Oh.
But we still invest together as a family, so we're still very much a family. And I want to share with our listeners and our viewers that the information that I'm giving you is the best information I can find as a science writer and a health writer. And it's the best information that I can find today. And it's the information that I would share with my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So it's the best that I can do at today, with the understanding that maybe 3 weeks from now, we might learn something quite different. But as of now, I recommend that you take all sorts of precautions, because you're so much better off preparing as early as possible, because we don't know if quarantines are going to come to the United States or in any other country where you're listening from. We can't predict the future, but it's not impossible that you might be facing a quarantine. And in view of that, what can you do to prepare?
And this, and this, you're not just like giving people this information to instill any kind of a panic. This is to educate so that people understand and can become prepared for. I mean, look, I saw it and I've been in denial. Like I have been in denial, but like I saw it pop up yesterday that they're declaring the city of New York a state of emergency because of the unbelievable amount of coronavirus cases that are reported. As of yesterday, I don't know what the number is today, but you're saying that you're hearing it's doubling every 4 days.
That's what I've heard.
Wow.
And this is a little scary because if you had asked me 2 weeks ago, what's the doubling rate? The sources that I go to and trust would have said 7 days.
Wow. There's a question for you from Francis.
Hey, Francis. Yeah, anything will help. Or my theory is anything is better than nothing. And I actually make molds, so I know what you're talking about. And I do have a mold mask. And yeah, you're lucky. You're fortunate.
Did you say you make mold?
Molds.
Molds.
Yeah, because I have an odd hobby that I would love to know if anybody else in the world has my hobby. But if you have let's say you've got an antique picture frame, and the little pieces of it have fallen off.
Okay.
I can repair it by making a mold of one of the parts that's still there and making a mold of it, gluing it on and painting it the color of the picture. And it makes me very popular with family members when I can fix their old pictures. So,
wow.
So dear friend who happens to have a mold mask, that's why I have one.
That's awesome. So don't touch your face, which you're used to doing 25 times an hour. So break that habit right now.
It's so interesting to me to be, we've got a split screen so I can see you, but I also get to see me. And I'm noticing, that it's really true. I have for a good bit of my life tried to avoid touching my face because I know that business about how that's one of the fastest ways to spread germs, which incidentally, let's get into why you should wash your hands.
Let's talk about that because that is, I have the benefit that none of you have. And that is I have a huge list of some amazing preventative measures that you sent to me. So thank you for that. But that was for this show. So it wasn't for favoritism reasons. So prevention. And you said no, we'll get to number 8 in a minute. I can't even talk about number 8. So number 7.
But let's go with washing your hands.
Let's talk about washing your hands and the right way. So go ahead.
Okay, we've all washed our hands our whole lives. We think we know how to do it. But guess what? The average person gets it wrong. The first thing to remember is it takes a while, and you'd like a lot of lather in your hands. You wash both sides, wash here. But guess what you're likely to leave out? Your thumbs. The average person doesn't wash their thumbs. Your thumbs just sort of hang out there. So play particular, and I'm afraid if I actually demonstrated it would look terribly rude, but we all have dirty minds, right?
You know what? Hey.
This is Aunt Mitzi speaking, and Aunt Mitzi knows that my family has dirty minds. So I'm not going to demonstrate how to wash your thumbs, but deal with it. This is Mitzi speaking.
Hey, you're talking to a lot of other humans. We're all human.
Well, I've simply decided that I'm Aunt Mitzi, which means I'm related to all of you.
There you go. We're going to call you Aunt Mitzi from here on out.
Aunt Mitzi loves all the people who are listening to us, but I'm not going to have a rude gesture. But I think you can guess it. You have to wash your thumbs as well. And on average, you'll forget unless you pay attention to it. The other thing is you want lots and lots of lather because lather mixes with the oils in your skin,
okay.
which happens to be where those coronaviruses are like lurking. So when you wash your hands and then rinse it, and there's studies that say it doesn't make a lot of difference whether it's hot water or cold water. And some even recommend cold water because since it doesn't make a big difference, you're being ecological. I personally find it hard to believe that they're right, but I'm repeating some very reputable people that they say rinsing in hot or cold water doesn't make a difference. Another
Really?
Well, that's I'm a science writer. I find it a little hard to believe, but they're reputable people who say that. Another thing to pay attention is your fingernails. So you want to get the lather everywhere. You rinse the surface oils off that is attached to the lather. Wash it down the drains. Pay attention to your wrists as well, and spend enough time on it. They recommend 20 seconds. But since I know perfectly well that you're not going to be looking at a stopwatch for 20 seconds, here's something that I've tried. If you sing all of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, I've timed it. It takes me exactly 20 seconds. Other people say sing Happy Birthday twice. And, this is something that it's so unlikely, but it happened. I've actually, believe it or not, taken a class in washing your hands.
Wow.
Well, here's how it happened.
At Harvard?
Nah.
Oh, I was like, wow, okay. So, and I'm concerned. I have one friend on here named Joe Ingram that he may not know Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Okay, then go with Happy Birthday twice.
I'm kidding. He does. I love picking on him. So,
you're so my kind of guy.
Oh, so okay, washing your hands, lots of foam, and you're saying that the experts are saying it doesn't matter if you use cold or hot water, that it doesn't matter?
Let me be very specific. I have read experts whom I trust. I mean, they're epidemiologists, they're virologists, and they say that what you really want is a lot of lather, and whether you rinse it off with hot water or cold water, you've already done what's good. So I'm not going to judge who's right, because my intuition would certainly say hot water, but let's go with what very, very knowledgeable people say.
Okay.
I use hot water myself.
And under your fingernails as best as you can.
Okay, and then when do you wash your hands? Now, again, there's some scholarly disagreement on how long coronaviruses are going to last on surfaces. But the odds are, if you've been out, unless you're wearing gloves, you're probably going to touch like an elevator button, a banister. There's 100 things that you touch that other people are touching as well.
Like putting gas in your car. Ooh.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, because of that. Well, I was going to tell where the scholarly disagreement is.
Okay.
I have read. There are people whose opinions I respect who say that 2 hours and it's okay. Actually, I just said I respect their opinions. I wonder. I've also heard very knowledgeable people who say 9 days. So since I don't know how any of us can judge who of those two have the right estimate.
Right.
With just be super cautious and do everything in your power not to touch your face after you've touched any of those things. And remember, it's almost automatic. You will be so tempted to do it. Do your very best not to touch your face until you've been home or wherever you get a chance to wash your hands. Wash them for 20 seconds, and 30 seconds wouldn't hurt. I've also heard that 15 seconds probably does the trick. Wash your hands way before you're ever going to touch your face. And every time I come home, almost the first thing I do is I head for a sink and a soap with lots of lather. But what happens if you're outside and, Pamela, I'm agreeing with you. Woo-hoo. But
are you? I wanted to throw it up there to see if you agree. Pam is a dear, dear friend of mine. I love Pam. So you agree with what she's saying?
Okay, first, let me finish about the first thing I do when I come home is I wash my hands, because I'm pretty sure there's stuff that I don't want. And look, I'm just automatically touching my face. Such a habit.
Yeah.
But back to Pam. Can we put up Pam's comments again?
Yes.
Tree oil and clove are super potent antivirals. Yes. I totally agree with that. I've been looking up. Have you heard of Thieves Oil?
Of what?
Thieves Oil. It goes along with what Pamela's saying.
My wife probably has, and I'm sure Pam has as well.
Uh, this is a story that you just might enjoy knowing, and possibly it's helpful. But the bubonic plague, which took place from 1347 to 1353, and remind me about hand sanitizers because we'll get back to that.
Okay.
But a quick story about the Black Plague, also known as the bubonic plague.
Yes.
There were a group of people who were known as plague doctors. Now, a plague doctor was almost never a regular medical doctor. What the plague doctors, what their biggest function was, is that they somehow had the ability to go visit with people who were dying of bubonic plague, and they'd help them with their last will and testament. And they were also very, very useful to the municipal authorities to tally the dead. Now, what kind of person would go around when there's a plague and it's probably going to kill you, and they'd still go visit the infected people for their wills and to tally the number of people who died?
Mm.
Well, I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures, but back in that time, and this is something that I remember studying one day in a history class, there were these scary, scary costumes where people were covered, almost from head to toe, and they wore gloves, and they had these great big long beaks. I'll do it in profile, great big long beaks. And they had goggles. And when I was taking this class, and it was probably, dare I tell you, it was 50 years ago. When I was taking that class, the professor didn't know what we know today. And this is getting back to Pamela and essential oils. We thought, with the knowledge we had 50 years ago, we thought that these stupid people were just trying to scare the plague away. Nope. Here's what we know today. That they had something called Thieves Oil, in which they'd take lemon, they'd take clove, and I don't remember, maybe somebody could post what else is in Thieves Oil. But there's some things that you're likely to have maybe even around the house, or you can buy it on Amazon. They would just saturate rags and put it inside this cone, and the cone had the exact function of a face mask. And when they breathe it through, the antivirals of these essential oils that came from mashing up cloves, and I think it's cinnamon and lemon, and there's some other stuff, that eucalyptus, I think.
Somebody put it in here if you know what the oils are exactly, because I see you don't see the comments, do you?
I see the ones that you put up.
Well, on the StreamYard window, there's a tab over to the right that says live comments or something up at the right. I don't know if you see it or not, but it doesn't matter.
But I don't dare fiddle with anything, because if I lose you, I'll die.
No, you won't. We'll just get you back. So I'll revive you. So go
back to hand sanitizers.
Yeah.
That you're out and you're not near a restroom where you can wash your hands.
Okay.
Purell, I guess it's okay to use brand names, is off right now.
Maybe they'll call me with an endorsement deal.
Oh, yes. But if you can't, according to, I think, almost everybody that I've come across. Oh, great. Yes. Thank you, Sherry.
Sherry is amazing as well. You need to know her. She's amazing.
Okay, those are the ingredients of Thieves Oil, and that apparently did enable a whole profession to grow just by putting this stuff in that beak-like thing that you breathe through. And to me, it's just astonishing and almost humbling that back in 1347, they had figured out what we know today. Today we call them PPEs, personal protection equipment. Back in 1347, they had personal protection equipment that looks remarkably like ours. It covered their head, covered their ears, it covered every part of their body, including gloves and boots and long robes and goggles and these face masks that you'd breathe through.
I got to tell you, my wife. Okay, so I always she loves the essential oil stuff, and I was like, like, I'm always like, would you stop with your witchcraft stuff with your essential oils? And she was like, it's not witchcraft. It works. It's a blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
I'm on your wife's side.
I know.
I've actually sent away for probably, they have these little kits which have like 50 that you can have, and I bought them. So no, they sound good and I love them. So I'm an essential oil fan.
I've invested a lot of money in essential oils, but she puts stuff like on the bottom of my 9-year-old daughter's feet every night as she goes to bed, and all this, all these essential oils, and I guess they work. I stand corrected. Hopefully she doesn't see this.
Okay, I'm not into telling anybody that they're right or wrong, except when I agree with them, and I agree with that. Okay, but let's get back to hand sanitizer.
Yes, hand sanitizers. We're working on an endorsement deal with Purell now.
It's actually quite hard to get Purell right now. I mean,
Wow.
read a couple of days ago that there were people selling them for like $50 a bottle on Amazon, unless it's at which. I think it was Amazon. So if you can get it, great. But supposing you can't, what's a good substitute? Well, a good substitute is if you've got rubbing oil, if you've got hydrogen peroxide. Now, the downside of that, and I've actually experimented with it, it dries your skin just horribly.
I'll bet.
So I recommend that if you're going to sanitize your hands with that, have some hand cream handy afterwards, because I've been doing it and my hands are just feeling rough. So I know that hand cream's a good thing to add afterwards. But we're talking, the advice that I'm giving you on hand sanitizers, this is for when you can't get the real thing. I'm giving emergency advice. When you can't do the best, you just have to do the best you can.
I love that. When you can't do the best, you just have to do the best you can. So I have a question. It's related to this, and it's I don't know, maybe we'll just let me just ask the question. I have heard conspiracy theorists or people imply that this virus was intentionally created and released as a form of terrorism. What are your thoughts on that, or do you have thoughts on that?
I do have thoughts on that. All right. I think everything's a question of like odds. And if you gave me odds of 100 to 1, did somebody deliberately release this? I wouldn't even take those odds. I wouldn't take 1 in 1,000. I don't think I'd take 1 in 20,000. I just don't think it works that way.
Really?
Yeah. However, here's what I could wonder about, and that is, this comes from my background. I'm going to share something with you from right before 9/11.
Okay.
In the course of a story that I was writing, I once got to see, I'm going to describe something that I don't think I could even do today. But back right before, it was like 2 weeks before 9/11, I was in a laboratory with somebody whose business it was to figure out if there was a biological agent, something that would, a weapon of mass destruction kind of thing. If that was in the air, his job was to try to figure out how to identify it real fast. And I happened to read upside down on his desk a list of countries that we believed were engaged in bioweapons. And there were 23. And I was all excited about this. I thought, oh boy, I've got a great scoop. I can say that so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so has a bioweapons program. But as a journalist, I felt an obligation. This is a sensitive subject, and he hadn't intended me to see it. So I checked my story, that part of my story, with him before distributing it to Scripps Howard. And he almost got down on his knees begging me, please don't disclose that. And I said, why not? The readers would love to know it. And he said it would complicate my life because this is classified information, and if I let it out, Okay, now I'm not going to burn.
And you said there were how many countries?
23.
Oh my Lord, have mercy! Wow.
And I even saw the names of them. But out of respect for him, and if this were 50 years later, I'd name some of those countries.
Wow.
And for all I know, there are more than 23 right now.
Wow.
And
well, I heard that it was China, but you know,
okay, you asked me my opinion and the conspiracy part.
yeah.
I sincerely doubt that there's any country that would unleash this on humanity, because the harm it will do to even somebody who wishes us harm, it would cause them harm as well. So I'm pretty close to being ready to bet my life that it wasn't somebody who did it deliberately. On the other hand, it's not hard for me to imagine that maybe they didn't have the most careful ability to keep it, I don't know, contained. I heard one person say, what if you really need the money and you could sell a bunch of, I don't know, bats or rhesus monkeys or something on the open market, and make, after the experiments are done, take these animals out and sell them in the open market. Might somebody do that? And I'm inclined to think not, but it's not impossible.
Wow.
But a deliberate bioweapon use, no. And by the way, it's very legitimate for that Wuhan laboratory to have really bad stuff there, because I think I can guarantee that of the 23 countries that I mentioned, every one of them is also working on antidotes for these things. So you want to study the viruses to figure out what you can do about them. So it's legitimate, if in the current situation, to have these things on hand, whether it came from wild bats or not. I want to believe that it's wild bats, but who knows?
So do you know where the first case was, where it originated?
We do believe it was in Wuhan.
Where's Wuhan? Is that a country?
Because
I didn't go to Harvard. I don't know these things.
Well, no, it's not even. I'm laughing for a different reason. I had a gentleman friend that I visited in China every year for 12 years until he went to his great reward. So I love China, and I can't even tell you the pain that I feel that a country that has always treated me beautifully is going through such, the worst nightmare I can imagine. Wow. But back to where Wuhan is. I'm going to be so helpful. I'm going to show you what a friend I am. Here goes. Wuhan is in Hubei province. Are you good now? No, let me.
Oh, well, that clears it up. Thank you so much.
No, but guess what? I can
ask my Alexa.
No, guess what? I can be more careful, or more useful, I hope. Wuhan is known as the Chicago of China. It's where their major manufacturing is. And interestingly enough, it's sort of kind of in the center of China, the way Chicago's vaguely in the center of the United States. It's not in one of the coasts or one of the outer parts. It's kind of centralized. So we believe, well, actually, there's even some controversy. I told you it started in Wuhan, or that we certainly believe that it started in Wuhan.
Right.
A lot of people initially thought it began in the Wuhan live market, where they sell wild animals, where you can buy things like pangolins and bats and just all sorts of live snakes and things. It was initially thought that it began there, but I think today there are a lot of people who believe that it began even earlier than that elsewhere. And so if you want to get into conspiracy theories, that's the thing that would make you wonder. I'm not into conspiracy theories. My best bet is that it came from a wild animal, but we don't know.
Wow. That's crazy.
I want to get into toilet paper because one of your friends asked about toilet paper.
Somebody asked about toilet paper, but I want to talk about prevention number 8.
What was prevention number 8?
No more hugging, kissing, or being close to people.
Actually, that's called social distancing. And it's probably one of the best ways of slowing the virus. Guess what? if you're home and with your relatives, go for it. But out in the world, I've heard of a lot of recommendations that people copy either the Indians and you sort of bow and go namaste, or you copy the Japanese where you just plain bow and you don't shake hands. That could, I think the virus is going to run its course, and I hope it doesn't reach millions and millions of people. But one of the ways of slowing it is keeping your distance, because this virus does spread by being close to people. And if we could all keep like 6 feet away from everybody else, it would really slow it down. And when you see somebody, just bad news, if that person's carrying the coronavirus and they can have it, again, what I'm about to say is a little bit controversial, because some people say you'll see the symptoms in 5 days. I've heard people guess that they can be carrying it for 28 days.
Oh my Lord.
Well, there are some very reputable, knowledgeable people who quote cases where people were known to have carried it and they were well for like weeks afterwards, but they had been spreading it meanwhile. So that's why it's, I said at the beginning, I'm not here to scare people or panic people, but I do want them to take it as seriously as can be. And among the serious things is no hugging, except inside the house with your own relatives, no handshaking.
Wow.
The extent that you can, just keep distance. And something else that the Centers for Disease Control said this Thursday, just a couple of days ago, well, a few days ago, they said for people over 60, their immune system isn't as robust as younger people.
Right.
People over 60, to the extent that they can, stay away from people, avoid crowds. And this, let's be realistic. You can't always avoid crowds, but say you have to go shopping. Go shopping, I don't know, either late at night, early in the morning when the crowds are the fewest. The theater people may hate me for repeating this, but I wouldn't go to the movies anymore. I wouldn't go to big public events. All right, so here's something kind of personal, but you ready?
Yeah.
The number of people my age, and that's over 70, who are self-quarantining right now, who've simply got enough food and water to last for a couple of months, who just aren't going out anymore at all. How about most of the people I know? Most of the people I know well. Because if you're over 60, you count as being vulnerable. And the other groups that should be very, very careful about, to the best that in real life they can accomplish this, if you have like diabetes, if you've got a serious weight problem, if you've got asthma, if you've got coronary heart disease, if you are medically fragile, do everything you can not to get it to begin with. And that means social distancing. And that again means, to the extent that you can, and we all know that we live in the real world, but to the extent that you can, when you have a choice, avoid being near other people.
So, and I don't know if I'm following our questioning protocol or not, but they just pop into my head and I blurt them out.
Go for it.
So we're not sure of the gestation period, or we're not sure of the like if you can just be a carrier and never.
Well, I think it's pretty well established that you can be a carrier with no symptoms.
None ever.
Well, yeah, they're probably 80% of the people who get this. It's going to be either like a really bad cold, or maybe it's sniffles, or maybe nothing at all. But you still can be shedding viruses and infect other people. And we actually know of cases like that. I'll give you an example. There was a woman from Asia, a very bright woman in technology. She was in Germany, and while she was there, she visited and was in close professional contact with 5 people at a business conference. She came in for the conference. She left the conference. And for several weeks. She was just fine. The people that she was with at this conference all came down with it.
Oh my God.
And they had no other contact with anybody else that we know of that had coronavirus. She came down with it like maybe at about the same time that they did. But she was a carrier without any observable symptoms. She wasn't even feeling bad.
Okay, so if you had, knowing what you know, and you definitely know more about this than any person I know.
How much less than the real experts? What I do is quote the experts.
Say that again?
Well, what I know is quoting experts. I regard myself as something of an information scout. I go around looking for who, as a science writer, this is what I did my whole life.
Yeah.
Finding out who is probably right. And you can never be certain of anything, but you do the best you can.
Well, as the most widely syndicated environmental writer in the country, I'd say you have some certainly have qualifications. So,
can I interrupt on something?
Yes,
I don't still have that job, so I'm not now the most widely syndicated.
I know.
But there was a period when I was.
Right. I don't know I personally don't know anyone else that's been syndicated to 420 newspapers. So I'm just saying. So, but my like, if you had, like, my kids go to public schools. If you had children or grandchildren in a public school, what would you? Any kind of school, I guess it doesn't matter if it's public or private. There's a group of kids, snotty-nosed kids, and I mean, they are. And so it's like my daughter comes home with something new every other week, and a cough or sniffles or whatever. So what would you?
Childhood.
Yeah, I know, but what would you do? What do you do in this case?
I'll give you an answer. I think everybody should have like a bright red line where, when enough sort of red flags are up, that you take precautionary measures, including self-quarantining.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what mine are, but I recommend that everybody examine their own situations, because everybody's different, and I can't see into, like, closing a school is a really drastic thing, although it's being done. There are tens of millions of schools that are closed right now because of coronavirus throughout the world.
Yeah.
But closing a school is a huge step, because it means that let's just to give an imaginary example. Public school. The whole school closes down. A certain number of the parents are healthcare providers. Maybe they're intensive care nurses.
Yeah.
Maybe they're orderlies, who knows what. But if that school closes down and daycare is no longer available, then a large part of the healthcare providers are out of commission. They're not doing their job because they have to be home with their kids. And
Right.
And what about firefighters? What about police? You could just spin this on and on. So closing a school is an extraordinarily serious step to take.
Yeah.
And I don't want to second guess the people who are weighing the seriousness of closing a school with the second order consequences of, such as having healthcare providers not be available.
Right.
We're in a situation right now where there aren't a lot of good choices.
Here's a great question from Kim. She's in Australia. What if we all self-quarantined? So that that actually is great, because it leads me to my next question, and that is, what is the life cycle of this? What is when does it stop?
I'll tell you some hopeful things. the bottom line is, I don't think anybody knows right now, but I'll give some reasons for hope. And let's not forget the question. Was it Kim?
Kim Buchanan. Yep.
Okay, I want to make sure that we get to Kim, and I also want to make sure the time that we have left, we get back to the earlier question of toilet paper. But if we're quarantined for how long? If the whole population of the globe self-quarantined, how about it couldn't be done? Because you need food, you need water, you need electricity. You can't have everybody stay home. People would starve. It would be a catastrophe. So I think the point of self-quarantining is to slow it down.
Right.
The biggest thing, as far as I can tell, that the healthcare system is focusing on right now is having it slow enough so that the hospitals don't get overwhelmed. Because if the hospitals get overwhelmed, I mean, if 20% of the people who get this need hospitalization, it very quickly happens that the hospitals can't take new patients. So you want it to be sort of metered out. You don't want it to be all at once. You want it slow. And so self-quarantining has a huge social advantage of slowing it down.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is that everybody self-quarantining just isn't on the table. But then how long should a city shut down? Wuhan's been under lockdown for July, close to a couple of months.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I'm very much in favor of, in case there's a quarantine, I don't want anybody to be hoarding, but I'd sure be buying, to the extent that you can, I'd be buying high calorie dense foods that don't cost a whole lot. And rice, for example, beans. And I checked on Amazon today, knowing that I'd be speaking with you today.
Yeah.
Amazon, boy, I don't know how big a person's family is, but say for an individual, boy, I'd be buying 20-pound sacks of rice, 20-pound sacks of beans. And if Amazon's run out of that by the time we're talking, I'd be getting 10-pound ones, and I'd be getting several. Wow. But you want things that are calorie dense, and to the extent that you can. I mean, if your supermarket or wherever you buy food still has these, boy, I'd buy them, because if you're up against a quarantine that lasts long enough, you don't want to be hungry. You don't want.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the keys to life.
You also want water. And let me give you a really quick tip about what to do in a water emergency. And I'm going to predict that almost everybody listening to us right now is not going to be up against a water emergency, but some might. Yeah. And I'm going to give you some tips that just might be of help.
Okay.
Your water heater. If you have a water heater in your home or apartment, it's probably has 30 to 60 gallons of clean, potable water. And the way to get at that water, look at that great big, probably white tube. It's sort of like a giant thermos.
Yeah.
Look at the bottom of it, and you'll see a faucet. It looks like a faucet. And if you put a container underneath, a bucket or whatever you've got, and you can let out water from that. And let's hope you've got a 60-gallon one, but a 30-gallon one would be great. You need about half a gallon per day per person. So that's water. And then another one, and dear heaven, may this information not be of any possible use to anybody who's listening, but in an absolute dire emergency where you have no other choice, the tank of your toilet has water that, as I say, this is an extreme, extreme, extreme emergency, and I don't want you to have to use it. But it's there if you have to totally desperately need it. And then some people have asked me about swimming pools. If you're lucky enough to have a swimming pool, can you drink it? And the answer is yes, if you want to be sick. So,
right.
Well, why would it make you sick? First of all, there's just bunches of stuff that have probably fallen into your swimming pool that have multiplied little bad guys that could make you sick.
Yes.
It may have the wrong concentrations of chlorine. So, So what you really want is you want to distill that water before you drink it. And gosh, I can tell you how to distill water, but I recommend instead that you go to the internet and watch demonstrations of how to do it.
Yeah.
By the way,
Wow.
it is not that hard. I mean, I'll tell you the things that you need. It's really nice to have a great big, like, liter bottle of soda. You also would like sun. You'd like a beer can or some kind of can.
Yeah.
And you let the sun. Well, instead, let me tell you that it's doable. And it's not expensive, and you've probably got the stuff around your house that you can do it with. If you have a swimming pool and you absolutely desperately need to distill the water.
So, and just I used to actually. What?
I'm just reminding you, toilet paper.
I know we're going to talk about that. And you said in time, I mean, this is the internet and it's my show. We can go for as long as we want. And
No.
We've been on an hour and 11 minutes.
You know what? I have a date with grandchildren to go play.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, then you have to go.
This instant, but they are expecting me in about 20 minutes. So
okay. So one last question from Jamie. She says, serious question about buying gas masks with goggles to use if it gets to that point. Maybe she hasn't asked her question yet, or is that the question? And she'll say she'll say she'll put it up there. Let's talk about the toilet paper real quick. If people have run out of toilet paper, they can't find. I'm hearing that like that Costco and places are out of toilet paper, like out of it.
Okay. I mean, what an unpleasant subject. But humanity pretty much got along without toilet paper up until somewhere around, at least outside of China, most countries got along without toilet paper until 1857. In 1857, that was when the first commercial, at least in the United States, a patent was issued for toilet paper. We didn't use toilet paper up until then. So
what in the world did we use? They use, I mean.
Well, first of all, let me tell you what we can do now. Newsprint works pretty well. If you're in the country, leaves work pretty well.
Yeah.
But for what did they do? I hope there's no part in the world where somebody's having breakfast or lunch or dinner right now.
Yeah. Turn this off if you're eating right now.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Different cultures used all sorts of things like corn cobs.
Yeah.
Rags that they would wash the way we wash diapers or used to wash diapers.
Yeah.
And there's some cultures that actually they would always use their left hands for hygiene, where they would wash with their left hand, and then they'd wash both hands very carefully to clean it. But for how about most of men's inhabiting the earth, we didn't have toilet paper, and we did use our hands and water if we could, and it was just a lot less pleasant than it is today. So what do we do today if we're up against that? I know of people who've used paper from books. I visited the former Soviet Union probably maybe 40 years ago, and they didn't use toilet paper, at least where I went. They used newspaper.
Wow.
So toilet paper is a lot nicer. You know the big virtue of toilet paper? It will dissolve in septic tanks.
Yeah.
Newspaper, not so much. I mean, almost anything else that you use is not going to be so good for the water system.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And Jamie said that was the question. So it was serious question about buying gas masks with goggles to use. I think maybe she's referring to should we buy them with the goggles built in, maybe? I'm not sure I understand the question.
If I had no other choice, yeah, I'd do exactly that. And yes, baby wipes would be wonderful if you've got them, but at some point you run out. Baby wipes would be just absolutely ideal. So maybe the thing to do is to stock up on baby wipes if you can't get toilet paper.
Right.
But again,
Yeah.
let me a little quick talk about how much toilet paper we use. The average person who's being at least a little bit careful, and if it's a large roll rather than one of the really skinny ones that you can buy, a large roll of toilet paper should last the average person almost 2 weeks. So if you're planning for a year, 25 should get you close to what you need. But then people vary. So, I mean, who knows? But just as sort of a benchmark for where you can say, I'm going to use more than that. I'm going to use less than that. But it's a judgment call.
Oh, Jamie's saying, should we buy them? Should we purchase them? The masks with the glasses.
That answer depends. Are you going to be interacting a whole lot with people who are infected, or are you just an average person? If you're an average person, I would use this, and I might, just for added safety, I might add tape around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, you're doing it right, because if you're doing it right and you've sealed all the air from the edges, it's almost kind of claustrophobic. It's as if you can't get a deep breath easily. That means you're doing it right. Expect it to be slightly uncomfortable, and you'd really like to be able to take a deep breath, and you can't so easily when you're wearing one of these, but that means you're doing it right.
And that's if you're out and about and you're around a crowd of people that could be or possibly in a highly infected area. And literally, like I said earlier, for those that are just joining, yesterday I had a news flash pop up saying that the mayor of New York City has declared a state of emergency in New York City because of the number of people infected with the coronavirus. So it's serious.
Well, it's highly likely that whatever's going on in New York is going to be coming to a town near you in a matter of weeks.
Yeah. Yes. So
can I end with a thought that I got from my dear son?
Yes, please.
I asked him if he was worrying, and he said that if he hadn't made some preparations already, or if he didn't know what to do, he'd be worried sick. But he said that, knowing that there's some things that you can do to improve your odds of having a happy and safe life, he sleeps like a baby. And I want to give a plug for a book that I'm writing with Mark Victor Hansen. And you probably know him as the chicken soup guy, the chicken soup soul, chicken soup he has a whole series of them. He has sold more than 600 million books. And he and I are writing a book together. And it's called 52 Tips. We're not sure of the title yet, but 52 Tips for what you do about handling and dealing with the coronavirus in a way that will just add to your safety, happiness, peace of mind. And if you want to know more about it, please write to me at Mitzi@antmitzi.com, and I'll send you some of the chapters from it.
Wow. Mitzi, you are absolutely one of my new favorite people on this planet. You're amazing.
Well, it goes both ways.
Wow. So thank you. I know you need to get off to play with your grandchildren. That's awesome. So thank you for coming on. You spent an hour and 19 minutes with me. That's amazing. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
Of it.
Maybe we'll do this again. Have you come on for a little bit and chat more.
Updates, I'd be happy, because frankly, I have a motto, and that is, it's my purpose in life. I'm here to increase happiness and decrease misery. And by the way, somebody just made a comment about doomsayers. I hope I'm not a doomsayer. I hope I'm somebody who can.
No, she says the doomsdayers don't look so crazy anymore. Yeah. So no, you're definitely not that. You're one of the happiest, most positive people I know. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm well, you and I are going to be talking more. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I look forward to it so much. Thank you.
Okay. And everybody, if you want more information, some tips, some of the chapters that she's talking about, send her an email to Mitzi@AuntMitzi.com. I've had it scrolling across the bottom of the screen the entire time. Mitzi, thank you.
It's been a joy.
All right. Don't hang up on me, but I am going to end the live stream. So everybody, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who shared this out and all your questions and love. Thank you.